Eddie Howe's given a press conference in South Korea and his update on Alexander Isak suggests his stance is softening even further. We're going to be discussing an unlinked possible replacement for Isak and also the possibility that Aaron Ramsdale could be jetting into Tyneside. It's NUFC Transfer Daily and let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we get going, please do hit subscribe, hit that like button and join the community. Today again, I didn't want to start talking about Alexander Isak. I had a thumbnail without him on it, but Eddie Howe gave a press conference this morning and the update was interesting again. Basically that he wants him to stay, he hopes he stays. There was no use of the word confidence, but also again reiterating it's not in his control. Basically, it feels like it's down to Yasser Al-Rumayyan, who's apparently in Newcastle at the moment, to have this discussion. Can't verify that, I don't know if it's true, but if that is the case, then this is all coming to a head. We know that Liverpool are likely to make a bid this week. Newcastle's stance has not changed from not for sale, and we discussed yesterday that because of the Benjamin Sesko links, because of the situation there and the fact that Manchester United are creeping into that conversation too, it's very complicated. I think Newcastle need to replace Isak with a top quality operator. Sesko's one of those. There's another one on the list that we're going to talk about today from the same club, RB Leipzig. Isak staying at Newcastle and being unhappy is still a better scenario than having Will Asula up front. So they have to be careful. Something that Eddie Howe said in a previous presser that I think is really true is that whatever happens, it has to be for the betterment and the benefit and on Newcastle United's terms. So whatever happens, whether he goes to Liverpool, Romano said yesterday it was 60%. That's how I would generally sort of see it. I think he probably is more likely to go to Liverpool now because of the way it's progressed, because of the noise, but it isn't as certain as some of the reports are saying, because Liverpool first of all have to bid, but the conversation may not be a thing of he's going nowhere. It'll maybe now be a case of pay up the money right now in the way that we want you to, or you're not getting him. Newcastle's hand is extremely strong still, 3 years on a contract. It's a very difficult time. This is what I said, earlier in the summer, a couple of weeks ago. It's a very difficult time to try and force your way out of a club when you've got 3 years on a contract. This is the same situation that Harry Kane found himself in when he wanted to join Manchester City, and he reintegrated himself and carried on and then for a couple more years and then went to Bayern Munich. I think that is kind of what could and will happen with Isak if he doesn't stay. If he doesn't go, I think he would stay for another year and then go next year, whether he'd want to go to Liverpool, whether Liverpool would want him because of the profile of player that he would be in a year's time, but also because of the clubs that will be interested. This is why I thought next year would have been a best play all round, because Barcelona are likely to be at the table as well, wanting a Robert Lewandowski replacement. And I've said so many times, Barca think that they can get Isak. They want Isak. Deco's a massive fan. He's the sporting director there now. It feels like that could happen if he's to stay at Newcastle, and that would probably benefit Isak as well, because he can go and play in Spain where he's grown up watching that league. He's openly said that he didn't watch the Premier League so much growing up. Liverpool's a great opportunity now, but is Barcelona a greater opportunity next season, given that he can play with Lamine Yamal? At the same time, it's not concrete. So it's what Isak's thinking is, I can go to Liverpool now and compete for these trophies and get all the money and all those things. You can fully understand that. So we'll see how it plays out. It feels like, though, Eddie Howe's comment today about not being in control and hoping again, the difference in confidence that he had after Celtic before all of this really kicked up a notch, even though it really started by then, is huge. So I think that this is kind of showing how difficult it is. And again, the Sesko situation, just to touch on that quickly, Manchester United are making a play for him. He may well have an opportunity to make that choice, and given what's happened this summer, lots of Newcastle fans are rightly, probably in my mind, not particularly confident that that deal will go through, because lots of players have chosen history and better wages and all that sort of thing over Newcastle, even though he would be the man to spearhead the project. That's the sell that Newcastle are making. He can leave Leipzig on a gentleman's agreement if a certain fee is paid, if it's a special club. Are Newcastle that special club? We've discussed it so many times that off the pitch, it's a little bit of a mess at the moment, so it doesn't really feel like that at this stage. But we'll see how it goes with Isak and Sesko. The one player that we wanted to talk about today is Sesko's teammate, Loïs Openda, who lots of people in the comment section have been talking about. Someone actually mentioned him yesterday. I said I would talk about him, and because nothing really massively concrete has happened, I know there's talks with Aaron Ramsdale, but I think we can talk about that a little bit later. It's not a major upgrade and signing, so I think we need to talk about the striker situation, because that is the hinge on the season, really. I think at this stage, Openda is similar to Isak in the way he plays, in terms of the these dribbling stats. If you look here at the progressive carries is a high percentile, progressive passes received is a high percentile as well. The carries, the way he gets forward, his shots isn't high. That's a worry, and the fact that he scored 9 goals and 5 assists in a difficult season for Leipzig is a bit of a concern. But previous seasons he scored 24 goals in the Bundesliga, and it's kind of a bit like Isak when Newcastle signed him from Real Sociedad, in that he's got something to improve, but he's 25. He's not likely to have the room to do that. That's a bit of a concern, I think. So I think Newcastle would have to be wary of that, but he's an excellent footballer. I thought to myself last year, off the back of that season scoring that many goals in the Bundesliga, that this summer would be a massive one for him, because he would be in line for those sorts of big moves. He's dropped off a little bit this season, and that's natural. I mean, Leipzig had a difficult year across the board. You look at Xavi Simons wanting to leave and not having the best season. Sesko scoring 13 goals, no more. It's been difficult, but the pair of them have played well up front together. The worry I have with Openda is he a front man? Is he a lone striker? I mean, the great thing about Isak is that he's so tall, and such an imposing figure. He's not particularly great in the air, but he's got an imposing physique. He's also extremely agile. He's very dynamic, and he can play he can dribble like he's 5'7", but also has that sort of physique. So that's why he can play up front on his own. Can Openda do the same thing? I think that's a question that is probably why Newcastle aren't making this move. I think he's an extremely talented player, very, very good on the ball, as I said, with those stats that you saw from FB Ref. So yeah, there's a definite player in there, but the value that he would cost, especially given that Sesko is likely to leave. We've seen that with Brentford this season and Johan Visser, that talks are still going on, but they need a replacement for Visser before they let him go, because they've already let Brian Mbeumo leave. So it's a difficult one to do this, but he is a name, Openda, that could well be an option, given that options beyond Sesko, as we discussed, are quite scarce. There is a report this morning in the Mirror, though, that Manchester United have moved on to Ollie Watkins as their main focus, which could give Newcastle the advantage with Sesko. We'll see how that plays out. Liverpool fans are all desperate for that to happen, so it increases the chances of Isak leaving. But I think Newcastle desperately need a player of that ilk to be signed and through the door, or at least lined up in a way that gives it a domino effect. So if Isak goes, that player definitely comes in. That's what's got to happen, and we're not near that with Sesko. The Sesko talk has been going on for nearly 10 days now, it feels like, and nothing has really been progressed in terms of his desire. He's going to make that decision this week. Manchester United coming in will only make it worse. It really doesn't feel like Sesko is the player that Eddie Howe spoke about at Celtic, about wanting players who are desperate to come. He doesn't feel like that sort of player, and that's a concern. Openda is another option. We've talked about Samu as well. There's who's a player that Newcastle haven't been linked with as part of this list. Nicholas Jackson, Manchester United, apparently made a play and also stepped away because of the price. It's around £80 million apparently, which is far too much to be spending on a player of that quality, given that he's not likely to be in the picture at Chelsea. I think that's not likely to happen. Sesko is still the player that it all hinges on. We'll see how it progresses this week. Eddie Howe's comments weren't particularly enamouring on Isak's situation as well. And just before we wrap up, we will talk about Aaron Ramsdale. Talks ongoing about a potential loan deal with an option to buy at the end of the season, or obligation, I'm not quite sure. But we talked yesterday a little bit about the goalkeeper situation, how bleak it was, considering they'd really wanted Trafford, hadn't got him, he's got Manchester City. Chevalier's been scouted, he's off to PSG. Juan Garcia they'd liked the look of, he's gone to Barcelona. So where do they go from here? And Aaron Ramsdale's a safe bet. And given the context of the window, from their perspective, Eddie Howe knows him. He's given his debut back in at Bournemouth. It feels like this is a safe bet for Eddie Howe, and it's gone down like a lead balloon on social media. Lots of fans are criticising the deal, but I kind of get it. I don't necessarily agree that he is a massive upgrade on Pope. He's slightly better with his feet, but it's a really important point that this idea that he's really good with his feet, that was why Arsenal replaced him with David Raya, was fundamentally because he wasn't amazing with his feet. So is he enough of an upgrade on Nick Pope to make it worth it? Or is it just an easy deal to do with a player that Eddie Howe knows and likes, and it's something to get over the line? What it really does show is how far Newcastle are down the line with targets at this stage. The players that haven't been on the list and weren't on the list at the start of the window, it really feels like that list is now in the bin. That list has been exhausted. All those players have gone somewhere else or rejected Newcastle, so they've gone back to the drawing board. They did want him last summer, couldn't agree a fee with Arsenal. He went to Southampton. Now they look like they're about to get him. Do you agree with lots of the fans on social media? Are you unhappy with the potential signing of Ramsdale? Is he good enough with his feet to make it worth an upgrade on Pope? Is he better as a shot stopper than Pope? That's where I would doubt it as well. But what it really does show is that Newcastle are very, very far down the pecking order when it comes to their targets at the moment. And it's going to be a very, very difficult end to what has already become a nightmare summer, which was supposed to be the time that Newcastle got to the stage where they recovered. Because we can all talk about last season being the best season of our lives, and statistically it was in terms of what they achieved, but the team wasn't ready for it. Eddie Howe and the players performed miracles based off a really good few months from December to about March, when it got them in a position where they won the cup, but they could also qualify for the Champions League. After the cup final, they didn't really hit the heights in terms of performances, but they got the job done at home. They struggled a little bit away from home. They only narrowly really got over the line. So this was the summer they were supposed to build and put things in place, and nothing's happened on the CEO's front, nothing's happened on the sporting director front so far. Targets have been missed. And this summer could be really damaging for the progression of the team, because it would be really, really hard to expect the team to go for the Champions League, given that the top four clubs in terms of Manchester City, Chelsea, Liverpool and Arsenal have all strengthened and got further away. Spurs are back in play, Manchester United are back in play. If they weren't as disastrous as they were last year, Newcastle would have had a difficult season. And towards the end, we sort of thought, wouldn't it be amazing if Newcastle somehow finished second? How incredible will that be? But really, given the opportunities that arose, Newcastle should have finished second, and a team that had more about it and a team that had more structure off the pitch would have probably finished second. The truth is, the club hasn't moved on nearly enough. In terms of revenue, it's done really well, but in terms of plans and stadium-wise, training ground-wise, sponsorship-wise, it hasn't moved on enough. The club is not different enough to where it was off the pitch 4 years ago. On the pitch, it's chalk and cheese, obviously, and that's down to Eddie Howe and the fact that they have bought some good players, and the recruitment has been excellent, but it isn't happening now because they're struggling. They've changed their approach, and they've had difficulty. So there's lots of reasons why Newcastle are struggling, but it really does feel like this summer's become a nightmare, and I think that it's going to be a difficult season if it carries on like this. That's a very pessimistic view, perhaps, but let me know if you share it as well in the comments section. Yeah, Sesko is not nearly as close as I would like him to be for the Isak scenario to kick into action. Eddie Howe's comments on Isak weren't, again, very reassuring. Loïs Openda, is he the right option? I think he's a brilliant player, and I think if he'd be an ideal second strike. He'd be an ideal Wilson replacement in so many ways if Isak was staying. But to replace Isak, he doesn't seem like the right type of player to me. Let me know in the comment section what you think, and I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Cheers.